Welcome back, guys. It's Chad again here with the Chad X podcast. We have the same special guest. We have Ferris. Say hi to people, Ferris.
Hey guys, it's Ferris.
Absolutely. You guys know it's going to be a great episode when you hear that voice. So we're going to start off today with sort of the topic of the week. May end up being the topic of the century. The Chinese AI that just released DeepSeek, specifically DeepSeek R1. DeepSeek itself was released back at the tail end of 2023, but DeepSeek R1, which is their new, more advanced version of the AI, is being reviewed by many of the AI users, critics, technology space, people, reviewers, the news, all those people, and they are saying that this is more advanced than anything we have done in America in terms of the AI field, which is really interesting because some of you may notice Trump just announced he's going to put $500 billion of public funds into AI research to these American-based firms such as OpenAI, but they're already being outcompeted by a Chinese firm which accomplished this highly advanced AI using a $6 million budget allegedly. So that's something that's really, shaking up the world and changing things around. I also just want to give you guys the full background here. The company that made this is actually not a tech firm at all. They're a financial firm. They do quantitative investing, which is a little complicated to explain, but just to let you know what it is, it's the idea of using math, formulas, algorithms to decide which securities, such as stocks and bonds, to invest in, when to buy them, when to sell them, things like that. It's very popular in America. A lot of the largest firms have entire quant departments, and there's some hedge funds and other types of securities trading establishments that are entirely quantitatively based. They don't have actual traders making serious decisions. It's all algorithmic, and they just have their quants putting in the algorithms, reviewing things, and doing the math around making sure it's all fine-tuned to the highest degree. So the corporation that
Yeah.
made this new AI tool, they made it for that purpose originally. It was supposed to be a quantitative analysis tool using AI. That's actually been their main focus since 2023, is finding a way to use AI and large language models to quantitatively trade more effectively. This one in particular is interesting because it has a skill called it's called reasoning, a certain type of reasoning. It's the idea that it can make an argument with itself. It'll do the math, it'll find the correct answer, and then it'll say, is that really right? And it'll come at it from another approach. So it can sort of go back and forth within its own head, which is a lot similar to what we humans do, and it's considered a real breakthrough in AI. Some of the AI firms are saying O1, which is OpenAI's most recent model, is as advanced or similarly advanced or possibly even more advanced than R1. But most independent reviewers who aren't affiliated with an American tech company say that no, R1 by DeepSeek is more advanced. It's open source as well. That's a big point of contention, is the fact that all the data, all the everything, the data, the code, everything that makes the AI engine run is publicly available to review and use by anybody around the world, and it can run independently. It doesn't need to be connected to the servers run by the company themselves. You can run it independently on your own computer with your own chips if you want to, or if you had your own server. You can train it with your own data set. So we're getting a real new expansion in the frontiers of what is possible with AI, which has been the tech of the 2020s so far, the one that's been the big invention that everybody's saying may revolutionize the world. And it's interesting now that China's having sort of what some people are calling a Sputnik moment. This is a reference, of course, to the 1957 launch of the satellite Sputnik by the Soviet Union at that time. Sputnik was something that many American establishments, when it was launched, said shouldn't be possible with the level of technology the Soviet Union had, because it was beyond the capabilities of the American space program at the time. So there was a lot of similar energy around that there is now around DeepSeek from this Chinese firm, in the idea that it would not be possible for America, so it certainly couldn't be possible for anybody else. That American exceptionalism mentality was preventing people from realizing that we were entering a new era, and there's a chance America would not be the leader of this new scientific revolution that was sure to change the world. What ended up resulting from Sputnik was, of course, the space race, where the U.S. and Russia tried to launch satellites into space containing animals. They tried to launch rockets into space containing humans eventually, and eventually culminated with America making it to the moon, and the Soviet Union deciding to reallocate their resources towards different ventures, as well as America into the 1970s. We underwent here in America sort of a big program of wealth redistribution, the expansion of the welfare state, and the Soviet Union did a few other different things with their resources. This was after Stalin died and they had new leadership. The gerontocracy sort of set in and tried to Well, it's another interesting thing that's kind of why it all relates to this is that the gerontocracy in the Soviet Union took resources away from science and education and redistributed them towards things that helped them and their old oligarchic cohort. And we might see something similar here in America where we're having a moment where we have an opportunity to really revolutionize the world with technology and take charge in the AI version of the space race, the AI race. But we may lose because we have what the Soviet Union had, and that is a bunch of old oligarchical leaders who are more concerned with filling their own pockets and looting wealth from the lower classes than they are with actually advancing technology and using it to change the world. Sorry, that was real long winded, Ferris. You want to get a thought in here?
No, I just wanted to talk. You're good. I'm glad you were able to explain it deeply for our viewers. Um, I do want to say I found it fascinating when it dropped, because all I've been seeing reports is the United States has been having similar AI out, but they spent more money on it, and the quality is not as close to being as good as this new one that China has brought out. And the way that it was much more cheaper the way they made it too, and it's free for everybody to see, and use. So, and I think it's cost. I saw some report. I don't know if it's true. I think it cost what, 1 trillion a day, in one day or something like that, or cost like 1 billion in one day to hit the stock market. I don't
$1 trillion.
know, something,
Trillion,
one
yeah.
trillion. That's insane to think about it. That's insane. Again, I think we talked about this one of the old episodes, Chad. How we said there's going to be an AI race, and it's here. No, no, I don't think we talked about it. It was one of my friends that I talked to him about it. I was like, right now we're entering kind of like back in the day with the space race, but we're going with an AI race now. So things are about to be crazy right now. Let me just tell you that. So the US is going to be heavily investing, which they are planning to, 500 billion, and China's planning to do the same thing right now. It's going to be whoever has the best AI. And so far, of course, as of right now, China's winning. So,
Seems to be, and the most interesting part about China's apparent immediate victories, which long term we'll see how it all pans out. But the most interesting part has
hmm
been in Nvidia is a company. It's the company. Well, this all ties together with the stock market crash. So Nvidia was the
yeah.
largest portion of that crash, and part of the reason for that is that China, the company that created this DeepSeek AI in China, they are under an embargo from the U.S. They cannot get new NVIDIA chips. I believe Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden, is actually the person that put that embargo up. So they are unable to get the most up-to-date chips. And NVIDIA's stock skyrocketed a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was about two, when AI first
hmm
was introduced to the market. Because in order to train these AI models on data sets and things of that nature, you need the most up to date chips. Was the common belief? You know what I mean? That's the common consensus around this. Is that in order to make an advanced AI model, you're going to need more and more and more advanced chips. And Nvidia is the probably the world's best chip maker right now, in terms of design. In terms of actual manufacturing, obviously that's TSMC in Taiwan. Another point of contention between the U.S. and China in terms of this tech race, this AI race. But Nvidia is the company that designs the chips, and they're the ones doing all the innovative, imaginative work. And they weren't giving those chips to China. So there's something called the 800 model of this chip, which is a much older model than the ones we currently use for our AI chips. Is what these models in China, the DeepSeek model, was actually trained on. So the
hmm
DeepSeek model is trained on what we consider to be an outdated chip that you can't actually use to make even what we have in America as cutting edge AI. So the fact that they were able to create a more advanced AI than we have, that's open source, that's able to run locally or in a connected network, and they're using a chip that is much worse than what we have been told is what the standard needs to be. That caused a bit of a market shock because now people are thinking, wait a minute, if you don't actually need Nvidia to expand and grow and create new ideas for chips in order to make good AI, maybe we've been overvaluing Nvidia as a company. And my personal belief is there's a lot of companies that are overvalued right now. Nvidia is just the top of the list because its stock I think like got 12 times higher over the course of a couple months. And that's just, you know what I mean. That type of inflation shows that there's clearly a bubble forming there in the chip manufacturing space, specifically the Nvidia space. But in general, I think that the whole stock market right now is being held up by the tech bubble, And if America loses tech dominance, going to see a lot of people lose money. Specifically, a lot of baby boomers are going to lose their retirement funds because they own most of the stock in America and they are heavily invested in the tech sector. So if these tech companies
Hmm.
crash, if China's tech sector blows up and takes over, a lot of people are going to lose their retirement money, and we'll see what that does to the state of the American economy and the state of the global economy. It'll be interesting. The only country in the world that is prepared for a mass loss of retirement funds of their senior citizen class may be China, because the majority of senior citizens in China, their retirement is through either A, their family, or B, because a lot of them lost a sense of family lineage due to the one child policy, through government
Hmm.
funding. So if their government can continue to generate a degree of wealth with AI revolution and use that to fund housing and elder care for its aging population, the baby boomer, which is their largest generation as well as ours, the baby boomers, they may be the best.
Hmm.
What's the word I can say? The best prepared to weather the shock that comes with the crash of the tech bubble.
True. It's I think a lot of things are about to happen. Like I said, the race has started. I think has been started, but this is going to be like heating up now. Um, the world's going to be going through a lot of shifts. In my opinion, I don't know how you feel about this, Chad, but I can see it going to it can shift. Right now we're seeing the race with China when it comes to AI, but I also think it's going to play hand to hand with let's say if China is successful and a lot of the world economies is going through it. What do you think a lot of these countries around the world be like, okay, maybe because the US has crashed, his economy crashed, it's affected us big time. You don't think it'll make people afraid of to join BRICS? I think that can lead to people eventually going to BRICS, you know?
Absolutely, without a doubt, we could see the formation of new economic blocks, new cultural blocks, and even new political blocks. Speaking of new political blocks forming, there's been another event in the news that we wanted to touch on. We've touched on this before. We're probably going to touch on it again. It's a really interesting developing news story. Let's say we'll call this a new little segment in our podcast. We're going to call it the Greenland Five, or the 5 Minutes of Greenland. We'll work on the name, but
Mhm.
I think every
Mhm.
week we're probably going to give you guys, until something big happens, we're going to give you a little bit of update on the territorial ambitions of the American Empire, or the state of the United States of America.
Mhm.
And right now, the most interesting domain that they're looking to expand into is the idea of acquiring. Trump has suggested through financial means, he suggested a purchase of the land of Greenland, the world's largest island located off the coast of eastern North America, currently in the
Mhm.
possession of the nation of Denmark. He suggested
Mhm.
buying it out, but he's become very forceful lately in saying that it's definitely something he wants to get done under his administration. There have been several meetings
Yeah.
between Trump and members of his administration and diplomats from Denmark, and the recently, within this week, I should say, at the time of recording, Denmark's one declared a state of emergency. They said that this is, a big red flag. This is something very concerning. After a meeting with Trump, they found out he is completely serious and aims to accomplish that. And the other important thing that happened is the nation of France, after meeting with Denmark, said that they are willing to and considering stationing troops in Greenland to fend off an American invasion if we, the United States, try to annex that land by force. So things are really developing in an interesting way there. And Ferris earlier, prior to the podcast, mentioned to me that he thinks this may lead to the dissolution of NATO. And if we saw NATO go away, that would shake up the world's political and military alliance system in such a dramatic way that it's hard to even predict what the world would look like after that. But of course, we're here to make the hard predictions. So, Ferris, go ahead and start us off. What do you think
Yeah.
would be some of the immediate consequences of the dissolution of NATO? And what would the world look like, let's just say, right after that happened?
First, thank you, Chad. First of all, I would like to explain one thing. When Macron came out and said that the French would station their troops in Denmark, he not only mentioned that, but he also mentioned like France and some of its European allies. So it'd be basically the EU protecting Greenland from an American invasion. Uh, I think what's going to happen I do believe NATO's going to be gone very soon. Like it's going to be dissolved. I think the United States is going to pull out very soon out of NATO, or something's going to happen where the NATO, a lot of the NATO countries are going to try to kick the United States out when they have been trying to do that. Because from what I've heard in reports, is the European countries are trying to make a super like European army. So they're trying to get like an EU, but all full of all together they have a military specifically, from what I understand. So, and Chad, you when we talked earlier, you explained to me they're trying to even get some of the Middle Eastern countries to come be part of it. But I think what they're trying to do right now, they're trying to stay away from they're trying to get their away from the US. The world in general, specifically Europe and its ally and the US allies are starting to get more and more distant from the United States. They're trying to get away from them. So that's going to shift like the U.S. influence throughout the world, which is pretty wild to see, especially in our lifetime. It's not something I expected in our lifetime, but I guess we're getting edging closer and closer. If
Y-
the U.S. tries to go and um,
Our
invade
allies.
Greenland forcefully, our allies, that's immediate war. Even so, we're in. They're both in NATO together, U.S. and Denmark. You do that, you kind of basically go into war with Europe, and that's just gonna cause potentially a World War III. I don't know how it play out, but it's basically would be like all Europe against the US. That's how I kind of see it.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting times we're living in. I've been expecting for a number of years, honestly, since the first Trump presidency, that we would enter an era of American isolationism. But I thought it would be sort of internally
Mm-hmm.
motivated. I thought Trump was going to, fence off China. He always promised to bring back American manufacturing. That was one of the things he campaigned on in the Rust Belt region of
Yep.
America, decimated by poverty currently due to the offshoring of many U.S. jobs. I thought, his border policies with
Mm-hmm.
Mexico and wanting to deport millions of immigrants, I thought those things would cause American isolation, but I thought it would be internally motivated. It'd be something we as a nation voted for and decided to make happen. It's looking more and more like, well, partially that is the case. Voting for Trump is going to cause that American isolationism. A larger part of it may be that the world is deciding to distance itself from America. I mean, just as a small note, and this is
Yeah.
probably going to be one of the last things we discuss. Recently, Trump tried to deport several planefuls of immigrants to Colombia, and the Colombian government
Mm-hmm.
refused to accept them at first because it said it did not like the way they were being transported. They were handcuffed and sent on military vehicles, so they refused to accept them. So Trump immediately announced a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Colombia. Colombia agreed to acquiesce at that point. They said send them back in a different way, have them unhandcuffed. They were sent back. The illegal immigrants were deported and accepted by the Colombian government. But Colombia immediately after that has started reworking its trade agreements. The politicians and the economists in Colombia have begun adjusting how they do things because America is still the number one trading partner of Colombia, whereas most of South America has switched over to allowing China to become their number one trade partner. And it looks like Colombia may be following suit after this sort of tiff they had with Trump. So American isolationism, it may not just be, oh, China's out, Iran is out, the Middle East is out. It may also be that some of the continental arrangements that we viewed as being long-term, probably permanent American allies, nations that we would always have close relationships with, may also be on their way out. We may be losing South America, Central America, and Europe as well, those are not things that I expected would happen. Your thoughts, Ferris?
Um. No, I agree with you, Chad. I just see that the future is happening very soon. My prediction is starting to happen. Which was that these countries are starting to become less and less involved with the U.S. And this right now with Trump doing all these, especially threatening tariffs to all these countries, what he's basically doing, he's kind of pushing all his allies away and these people that he's been making like trade partners away. It's gonna get to the point where now what you're doing, you're pushing these countries towards Russia and China. Specifically China. You're pushing them away to China, which is gonna get to a point where like it's going to be bad for the United States. I'll be honest with you, because again, I think the end goal. My prediction is the end goal is BRICS. The reason why I say I keep bringing up BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia. India, China, and I think Saudi Arabia. No,
South
South Africa.
Africa.
South Africa. It's a new currency that they're making, and it won't. They're not. It's not something that's going to be immediately. I don't see it's an immediate thing. I see it's like a long term thing that's going to happen. Their goal is they're going to use the currency to be backed by like natural resources compared to what every currency is right now. Every currency right now is backed by the U.S. dollar. It's traded in the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar is backed by itself.
So you see,
So
you're expecting an end to fiat currency. That is an interesting prediction.
yes, I really believe that, and I think that's happening. I
So
think it's going to happen in our lifetime. So,
interesting.
weapon.
I'm very interested to see if that does happen. If that happens, we would see a dramatic shift in the way the world works. I mean, fiat currency has been the way the world has worked for almost 100 years now, I believe. So definitely
I
interesting.
know this is the 70s. The 70s it shifted from like the
Technically,
US
even
dollar was backed by gold, I think, and like natural resources, and then they switched it to itself back in the 70s.
technically even before that, it is actually the real true gold standard. We went off of that, I think, in the 1890s. Let me take a look here. America went off the gold standard a long time ago. We were pegged to some idea of natural resources up until the 70s.
Mhm.
You're talking about the Bretton Woods system, but
Mhm.
yeah, it ended initially in the okay. So it ended in the 1920s, and then we got partially back on it from 1944 until yeah, like you said, the 1970s, and had a
Which was
one
what to me that's the American golden age technically when if you think about it.
yeah.
American economic golden age, the American boom golden age, I think it was that time period.
It would definitely be interesting to see the Bretton Woods system make a comeback. I mean, hey, we'll see if we get an American Golden Age, or like you're expecting, a Chinese,
Collapse of the United
Russian,
States.
Indian Golden Age.
Yeah. I think that's gonna happen. I think the way the United States is going towards right now, they're going towards a path where they're pushing all their allies, and they know for sure their allies right now are going through a situation like crap. We can't do too much with the U.S. Not only militarily. It's the most important thing is it's
We're the big dog.
if the U.S. wants to, yes, we're the big dogs. We had the dollar. The dollar's back. It's backed by every currency in the world. Most of the currencies in the world are backed by the U.S. dollar. So they control basically the French economy, the German economy, the British economy, all that stuff. If the dollar collapses, they all collapse. So I can definitely see them start moving like, okay, in the future, maybe not as of right now. Like I know right now Europe are having issues with Russia and Putin. I can see it happening in when like the war in Ukraine's officially stopped in the future, and like sometime after that, maybe after Putin, maybe a new leader in Russia.
Interesting.
Uh,
I disagree. I think we're going to stick with fiat currency for the foreseeable future. I think we'd have to have like an apocalyptic event occur. We would have to have the entire world agricultural, like just the whole system of the world, the energy system, everything would
mhm.
have to collapse in order for us to go back to a Bretton Woods style, an asset backed currency system. I think we're going to stick with fiat currency for the future. It's just too convenient for governments to be able to print more money when they need help with that stuff. What do you guys let you guys all the viewers let us know in the comments, what do you think is more likely to happen? Are you on Team Ferris or Team Chad? Are we going to go back to asset backed currencies in the future, or are we going to stick with fiat currencies because no government wants to give up control of their ability to print money? Please leave a comment below, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and that's going to do it for us today. Thank you all, as always, to our wonderful guest Ferris for coming in and sharing some wonderful knowledge with us. Uh, have a great day.